Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
Throughout history, marginalized communities have often found themselves in situations where secrecy was necessary for survival. One of the most remarkable and yet little-known examples of this is the secret codes developed and used by Black and Indigenous peoples to communicate covertly. These intricate systems of communication were essential for resisting oppression, preserving cultural identity, and ensuring survival in the face of colonialism, slavery, and systemic violence. The methods of covert communication varied widely, from linguistic ciphers embedded within dialects and oral traditions to symbols hidden in artwork, textiles, and even the landscape itself. Slaves escaping via the Underground Railroad used coded messages woven into quilts, songs that carried hidden meanings, and paths marked with specific symbols known only to the initiated. Similarly, indigenous tribes used sign language, wampum belts, and pictographs to pass messages undetected by colonial powers. The ability to communicate in secret was more than just an act of defiance. It was a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. The development of these clandestine codes was a direct response to the violent erasure of African and indigenous cultures by European colonialists. By preserving their own systems of communication, these communities maintained not only their safety, but also their heritage, traditions, and histories. This article explores the origins, evolution, and impact of the Black native codes used to communicate in secret. Drawing from historical accounts, linguistic studies, and oral traditions, we will uncover the methods and significance of these hidden languages. The necessity for secret codes emerged from the oppressive conditions imposed upon African and indigenous peoples. For African slaves, literacy was often forbidden, and those who were caught reading or writing faced severe punishments. This led to the development of alternative methods of communication, including the use of African languages in a disguised form, as well as innovative uses of music, symbols, and movement. For indigenous tribes, colonial expansion brought the systematic dismantling of their societies. European settlers sought to destroy native languages and traditions through forced assimilation, displacement, and military campaigns. In response, indigenous peoples relied on their own encoded systems of communication to preserve their heritage and coordinate resistance efforts. Both groups found themselves in a constant struggle for survival, and their ability to share information undetected became a crucial factor in their resistance against colonial oppression. One of the most well-documented forms of secret communication among enslaved Africans was the use of spirituals, songs with dual meanings. While these songs appear to be religious hymns, they often contained coded instructions for escaping slavery. For example, the song Follow the Drinking Gourd provided a detailed map to freedom, instructing enslaved people to follow the Big Dipper constellation, also known as the Drinking Gourd, northward toward freedom. Similarly, Wade in the Water suggested that escaping slaves should travel through rivers and streams to avoid leaving tracks that could be followed by slave catchers and their dogs. Another method was the use of quilt codes. Enslaved women sewed quilts with specific patterns that conveyed hidden messages to those seeking freedom. Each design had a particular meaning, such as a log cabin pattern indicating a safe house or a flying geese pattern pointing toward the direction of escape. Gullah and Creole languages, spoken by enslaved Africans and their descendants, also served as a form of coded communication. These languages blended African dialects with English, French, and Spanish, creating a unique means of speech that was incomprehensible to European slave masters. Indigenous tribes developed their own methods of secret communication, which included wampum belts, pictographs, and sign language. Wampum belts, made from beads and shells, were used to record treaties, oral histories, and messages. While colonists often misunderstood wampum as mere decoration, native leaders recognized their true value as written records and messages of diplomacy. Pictographs and petroglyphs, carved or painted on rocks and trees, also served as hidden messages that could only be understood by those within the tribal network. Some of these symbols conveyed warnings, territorial markers, or travel routes. The Plains Indian Sign Language, PISL, was another sophisticated system of nonverbal communication that allowed different indigenous groups to communicate despite linguistic differences. This sign language was also used in situations where spoken language could be dangerous, such as during warfare or while in enemy territory. The interactions between African Americans and indigenous peoples, particularly in the southeastern United States, led to the blending of their secret communication techniques. Runaway slaves found refuge among native tribes such as the Seminole, Creek, and Cherokee, and in doing so, they adopted and adapted indigenous methods of encoding messages. For instance, the Seminole Maroons, a group of escaped slaves and their descendants living among the Seminole tribe, utilized native signal fires, bird calls, and smoke signals to communicate without revealing their presence to outsiders. Another example is the use of drum signals. While African drumming traditions were often suppressed by slaveholders, in some cases they were repurposed in ways that mirrored indigenous communication systems. Drumming patterns were used to send messages over long distances, mimicking the talking drum techniques found in West Africa. The legacy of these secret codes is evident in modern forms of African American and indigenous resistance, culture, and language. Elements of these historic communication methods continue to exist in contemporary music, street art, and coded language used in Black and indigenous activism. Hip-hop and jazz music, for example, incorporate elements of encoded language and rhythm that trace their origins back to African and Native traditions. Similarly, the use of graffiti as a form of visual communication has parallels with the pictographs used by indigenous tribes. The survival of these secret codes speaks to the resilience and creativity of Black and indigenous communities in the face of oppression. By understanding and preserving these histories, we honor the ingenuity of those who fought for freedom using the power of hidden words, symbols, and music. The history of the Black Native codes is a testament to the resilience and adaptability of oppressed peoples. From spirituals and quilt patterns to wampum belts and pictographs, these secret forms of communication ensured survival, resistance, and cultural preservation. The ingenuity of these methods not only allowed for covert messaging, but also created an enduring legacy that continues to influence language, music, and activism today. By acknowledging and studying these hidden histories, we gain a deeper understanding of the complex and often overlooked strategies used by marginalized communities to resist and preserve their identities. These codes were more than just means of survival. They were expressions of culture, intellect, and defiance against systems of oppression.